The implications of tolerance. Could speaking in the name of Jesus get you thrown in jail? Several years ago, Judge Samuel B. Kent of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas ruled that any student mentioning the name of Jesus in the graduation prayer would be sentenced to a 6-month jail term. The following are the judge's own words, taken directly from court papers dated May 5th, 1995. And make no mistakes that the court is going to have a United States Marshal in attendance at the graduation if any student offends this court, that the student will be summarily arrested and will face up to 6 months incarceration in the Galesville County Jail for contempt of court. Anyone who thinks I'm kidding about this order or expressing any weakness or lack of resolve in the spirit of compromise would better think again. Anyone who violates these orders, no kidding, is going to wish that he or she that had died as a child when this court gets through with it. The judge's words might not sound so shocking if they had spoken in the future Soviet Union or in a despotic realm of Saddam Hussein. But how could such a thing happen in the United States of America, the land of the free, in the home of the First Amendment? Easy Judge Kent's threats are simply a logical result of the new tolerance, the aggressive ideologically that opposes Christianity and shelters idolatry. The new tolerance because it is based on the view that all truth claims are equal, because they are culturally created and conditioned, must not only oppose but squinch at any proclamation of absolute truth. This explains why the name of Jesus so often invites such strong reactions from otherwise reasons-able individuals and groups. As Professor John D. Woodbridge states, Jesus' claim that he is the way, the truth, and the life makes politically correct modern gag. It is the ultimate heresy, and such repression of Christianity is just one of the immediate implications of the new tolerance. America, indeed almost all the Western culture, was once guided by God's unchanging truth in the scriptures. God revealed to mankind that there are certain absolute truths that they are true for all people in all places in all of time. Murder and adultery are wrong for all people, Exodus chapter 20, 13, 14. Stealing and lying are wrong for all people, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 11. Kindness and compassion, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32. And humanity, Philippians chapter 2, 1 11, are right for all people. For several millennia, our laws were established according to God's standards. Our morality was judged according to his requirements, but that is no longer the case. With the few expectations, we now establish our standards and judge morality according to a far more flexible concept of truth. One that suggests that there are no absolutes, that all truth is relative and subjective, right and wrong, different from person to person and from culture to culture. Such a root is reflected in such an oft-heard statement as, no one has the right to tell me what's right or wrong. This is what I see going on. People getting in their feelings. They can't handle the person saying that your belief is wrong without feeling some type of way or feeling like they want to get hostile with you, attack you and want to harass you and do all these type of weird stuff, like, and be so angry at you and God is hating you because you don't agree with their views. I can't tell you what's right or wrong. You must decide that for yourself. It's wrong to try to impose your morals on someone else. I have the right to do whatever I want as long as I'm not hurting anyone. You have to do what you think is right. Those may be the values your parents taught you, but my parents taught me different. And look, that's your opinion. The result, of course, is the death of truth. And truth no longer exists as an objective reality in the world of the new tolerance, which means in turn that morality is dead as well. As the late author Dr. Francis Schaeffer said, if there is no absolute moral standard, then one cannot say in the final sense that anything is right or wrong. By the absolute, we mean that which is always applies to all people, that which provides a final or ultimate standard. There must be an absolute if there are to be morals, and there must be an absolute if there are to be real values. If there is no absolute beyond man's ideas, then there is no final appeal to judge between individuals and groups whose moral judgments conflict. We are merely left with conflicting opinions. And if all that is left are conflicting opinions, well then who are you to tell anyone that his or her opinion is wrong? This is precisely what Spanish philosopher Fernando Saavedra referred to when he said all opinions are equal and there is no rational way to discern between them. Thus does the new tolerance insert itself into our minds and into our children's minds, eroding the foundations of truth on which our faith and morality are based, and this leaves us all vulnerable to Satan's destructive tricks. Branding anyone who dares to stand for objective truth and absolute standards as an intolerant bigot, who has no right to speak a fanatic, and who must be silent in order that progress may continue. Bravery, honor, and integrity, reverence, respect, civility, humanity, and generosity, and compassion. If you are like most Christians, you want to be known for those kinds of qualities. And if you're like most Christian parents, pastors, or teachers, you desperately want to instill those qualities in your children, church, or students. But as you look around, you fear that you won't be able to impart such things as honor and integrity to those who come after you. Do you know why it seems so hard to pass such values on to the next generation these days? Because such concepts are meaningless in a culture dominated by the new tolerance. If all beliefs, lifestyles, and truth claims are equal, how can one exalt humanity as a virtue? Who can say the civility is any more right than insolence, or the bravery is more commendable than the cowardice, or that truth is better than a lie? This is the one reason. The 1993 riots in South Central Los Angeles was victimized many Black and Asian shopkeepers and property owners as well as innocent bystanders. Did not prompt universal cries of outrage at such lawlessness and destruction, but instead brought appeals for tolerant understanding of the rioters' behavior. In the era of the new tolerance, what moral authority can pronounce such random violence as wrong? As the new tolerance increasingly displaces all the virtues in our schools, government, society, and churches, it would become increasingly difficult to impart biblical Christian values to succeeding generations. I don't know. Let's see if his kid stumps all day long again. 24 hours a day, stumping, stumping, stumping all day long, nonstop. How are you supposed to live in my apartment if I gotta hear that every single minute? So this person says, my upstairs neighbors have a young child who very loudly runs around at all hours of the day and night. I have asked them to quiet down. but they said they can't do anything about their child. What should I do? This person says, I used to have such a neighbor, and I told them that they should be more careful about the noise. But they basically just said, yeah, he's just a kid, suck it up. So I called the police on them. Of course, a kid making noise is not a crime. But apparently seeing the police at the door gave the little brat a good trauma. I wouldn't call her a brat. Then the father came down to shout at me and threaten me, so I called the police again. Well, threatening someone is a crime. In this time, the police took away his father. So I didn't file a complaint. If you don't discipline your kid, they said if you don't discipline your kid, someone else will eventually discipline you and your kid. So I recommend teaching this very basic lesson to all entitled parents and their spoiled offspring as soon as possible officiously. I don't know what he means by. I guess he means like if you don't discipline your child, like correct them, they just go out and do whatever, and then somebody or like put the child in its place because the child is like wilding out. Like they think they can like do whatever they want, especially breaking the law. And when you break the law and try to override the police, consequences happen to you. Consequences happen when you like act rudely to people and treat people a certain way, treat people badly. They don't realize that. And so you see kids like getting smart with anybody. There's somebody that's gonna like pop that person in the mouth or even do more damage because they think they're like so tough and they can just do what they want because they haven't had that discipline as a child. And some of the parents need that discipline. They didn't have that discipline when they was a child. That's why. That's why they act the way they do. I don't understand that language. This person says a lot of lazy, irresponsible, and inconsiderate parents just let their kids jump and run around in the apartment instead of disciplining them or keeping them busy or taking them out. I have such upstairs neighbors. The older one about 6, 7 year old, and the younger one about 1 year old. The 1 year old was an awful child and she would scream very loudly if she didn't get her way. And of course both of them would run and jump for hours. I have asked the mom to please have some consideration, and her answer was, they are children, and they gave her a cuss word. And when we were kids, we would just play without thinking of anything else until my mom would tell us to quiet down or the neighbor would complain, and then we would tone it down. This one says, I never understood parents who can't teach their children discipline and self-control. If we ran in those If we ran in the house as kids, we were sent outside to run around the house at least 3 times in all sorts of weather. And we would learn quickly that running in the house was inappropriate. And this was a very large house on a farm. Even though your situation is an apartment, there are ways those parents could give their children more physical activity outside or at activities such as martial arts classes or dance programs. And if they took the time to teach kids that physical activity was appropriate venues, they would also learn that an apartment is not such a place. As kids, we also learn the self-control to sit quietly and respectfully in the church for 2 hours. Kids can learn if they had the right parents to have the right mindset to teach them to have like self-control, have respect for other people while they're younger. Anyhow, complain to your apartment manager and threaten to leave if you are denied peace in your own home. If it continues, move to an adult house in here. Yeah. Maybe so it says, I'm not sure how you would handle it, but every time I hear a story like this, it amazes me how inconsiderate some people are. They don't give a crap. They're not being disturbed. So why should they care what their child does as long as it's not affecting them? While I understand that children running around the house, I also understand the impact it can have on someone living above, below, or beside them. Because I rented a three-bedroom house, which was part of a segment house with a lady and her two children and helper living upstairs. And the landlord did not tell me that the tenant upstairs had a child with autism and ADHD. And the child kept running up and down the house. It bothered me only when it happened at nights because I was at work during the days. But the person most impacted was my elderly mom, who was in her late 70s at the time, as I didn't know the child's situation, and I spoke with the mother, and she explained to me, and she did try her best to keep him calm. She was a very nice lady with a nice family, but my mother's comfort was so important, and so I moved after a few months. I don't know. I know. The demise of justice. Not only does the dawn of new tolerance sound single the death of truth, it also sounds the death knell for justice, like truth justice used to be dominate ritual in Western culture. But justice and the new tolerance cannot coexist because they are amphilial to each other, as Don Clausen of pro-ministry rights. While advocates of the new tolerance might refer to justice occasionally, it cannot be the foundation of their movement. And this is for the simple reason that justice is not possible without truth. In order for someone to say that actions or words are unjust, they are assuming that a moral order apart from oneself really does exist. Injustice applies that justice exists. Justice applies that moral laws exist, and laws imply that a lawgiver exists. In a society dominated by the new tolerance, justice will be increasingly overshadowed by competing demands of every special interest group, from environmentalists, human rights special interest group, and the righteous and human rights activists and farmers, to gays and lesbians, abortions, and gambling industry. The deciding factor in any decision will no longer be a question of justice, but simply a question of which group can yell the loudest, lobby the longest, and inspire the most fear and outrage. Court cases will be swayed more and more frequently by public opinion, and national leaders will be based their decisions on polls rather than the law or ethics, aided increasingly by a media that reports public sentiment instead of news. As a result, justice, the ethic that gave birth and success to the anti-slavery, women's suffrage, and civil rights struggles of past generations will die. The word will be used, of course, but it will no longer mean that which is just. It will mean that which is most popular or pragmatic. I'll be right back. Bye, I got to go.